Project Motor Racing, spiritual successor for GTR and Project CARS combined. And when we tested it earlier this year at an event in Zurich, very briefly, at a work-in-progress build, we were impressed, but also had some reservations about the driving experience, in particular, the handling characteristics. However, now we are at Gamescom, and I have to say, hand on heart, on this build, on this sim right now, feels like a step forward. So to recap, it now has a release date in November. There's more information on the Traxion website. It's PC, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. There's going to be some post-launch DLC. There's going to be cross-platform multiplayer. But we're still not able to test the career mode or the AI racing. We're not able to see the dynamic weather or test it for ourselves even in this build. And there's more announcements to come in terms of cars, tracks, content, features, configurability. VR is still in development. We're not able to test that at the minute. It may or may not be day one launch. We'll have an article about VR specifically because we asked the developers on the website. But what we really need to assess is the most important factor of a sim racing title, and that is, how does it drive? It's not a final verdict. This is almost that's first look, so a second look. But anyway, on this Logitech G Pro Direct Drive wheel, I'm getting a good amount of detail through. Let's start with that, the force feedback. I'm at more sport right here. The final sector, which I'll come up to in a bit, is particularly bumpy, and it's writhing around in my hands, but not to an unmanageable degree. You really have to focus, but it's providing me detail over the track bumps. I'm not necessarily feeling crazy amount of detail over the curbing, but that could be this car or track, so that could be a point to work on, but we'll have to see. And one thing I noticed with the GT3 Lamborghini when I first drove it was a bit spiky. When a GT3 car is meant to be more like wings, slicks, traction control for an amateur driver. My early, brief verdict, let's say, of this build versus what I tried at Goodwood Festival Speed and the Zurich launch event is feels more gritty, feels more real. The cars feel more planted. There's less of the some of the baseline characteristics that Project Cars 2 or Automobilista 2 can sometimes deliver, which is you turn into a corner, then there's almost like a weird floaty-ish four-wheel slide, and then it grips up. There isn't that right here, right now in this build. So we'll have to see for the final game. In particular, the classic Lola, which was very portraying that at the previous event. This Aston Martin just feels planted. But I'm also having to think about my inputs, but it's not spinning out wildly like previous builds were. It's delivering more detail through the force feedback on this particular wheel, and I feel much more confident. Anyway, that's an Aston Martin GT3 at a track we've seen before, Mosport or Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Let's give something else a whirl. One of the older cars, perhaps. Right, so now we are in the 1998 Porsche 911 GT1, the GT1 class of the late 90s. Peak sports car? Well, maybe we're going through a renaissance at the minute, so hard to tell, but this certainly was the best of the 90s that had to offer. First of all, again, it's another video without any direct capture footage gameplay. I'm very sorry. Hopefully that we can do that later for a full preview and review when it comes out. I can just about hear from this monitor the sound of this Porsche, and the turbo whistles are pretty epic. Really epic. Yeah, the car is direct, but at the same time I can feel its weight. It breaks away on corner exit in a naturalistic way. There's maybe a bit too much mid-corner push, but that could be the car setup or the tyres coming into temperature. It's just a lot better than previous builds. Simple as that. So we want to see progress. We'll deliver a final verdict at the time. However, before we go, let's try it on a gamepad. I'm just going to use this Xbox controller. I'm also told that on the PlayStation 5 version there might be some actual strength built into the analog triggers for extra feedback when you're powering some beasts like this. We've got time remaining, track map, there's a virtual rear view mirror on this particular setup at the minute, and then like a little, let's say, black box of settings down the bottom right, and I can go through that with the D-pad. So I'm doing that right now, changing settings, looking at my tyre pressures, but we'll just go to track now. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to do manual gears. This Lamborghini, which is LMDH, is running on electricity at this point, and then when we exit the pits off the limiter, the engine is going to spring into life. So I'll run through some of the camera angles, if I remember which button it is to press. So this is chase cam. This is cockpit. At the minute the steering wheel has been removed. That's one of the options that you can do. We'll tweak around with those settings in a minute. Then like a roof cam, bumper or bonnet cam. So this is built as a sim racing simulator game with single player career and console releases as I spin off. And the majority of players, while us at Traxion all use wheels to race, they will be using something like this to drive. So it's finding the tricky balance between how it behaves on a gamepad and a steering wheel. I would say, listen, this is my first time at Spa, first time in this car. I'm not setting any lap records, but I've only spun off once. Yeah, it's straightforward to drive. I'm impressed by how it drives on a controller. The real acid test will be on a wheel. When the final physics, we're told that the physics are still evolving right up to release and even beyond release, so we shall find out in the fullness of time. All right, so I paused the game at any point. I'm going to go now into some of the settings for cameras and HUD. So we'll go cockpit setup, then we can change seat position, the control bindings, and the HUD layout, and the camera settings. So we'll just quickly go to camera settings. So there are some effects at the minute for G-force and speed-sensitive shaking. Okay, then we've got seat position, all the usual things, forward, back, left, right, tilt. I can just click in the left analog stick, and that puts the steering wheel in. So because I've got the steering wheel there, I might want to change the field of view a bit further back. Obviously, control bindings, there'll be, usual thing, you can select what you want to do. We've got some keyboard shortcuts there because, like I say, it's running on a laptop. Okay, and then we've got usual stuff if you had a steering wheel, like force feedback strength and dead zones. But let's go for HUD setup. So here we can turn on and off everything you see on the HUD. And then we can go into the HUD layout, and this is where we can move things around. So we're selected on the fuel. If we need fuel warning here, I can put that right in the middle if I wanted to. I don't know why I would. Obviously, if you're on a PC, you can use a mouse to click through this, but I'm on a gamepad and I can still do it with the back buttons here, the shoulder buttons to move them around, and I'm told that this can also be adjusted on the console versions as well as the PC version. So hopefully that gives you some insight into what it's like on a gamepad. I know that the sim purists won't be interested, that's absolutely fine, but this is released on a console. I think maybe on console you might have more people playing on a gamepad, so it has to be improved in there, incorporated in there. Now I'm in the Audi R8 at Lime Rock. The underlying characteristics are somewhat similar to previous builds, but it's just more precise, it's better, it's more polished, and getting more information back. The visuals, I think, are still work in progress. There's things in the distance popping up. The grass isn't as detailed as it could be, I suppose, but I don't really care so much. It's more the detail popping up, which I'm sure, well, I hope will be changed before the final build. But this, hey, work in progress, and things are still improving, like the physics. In fact, I think we spoke to Ian Bell about that. It's releasing in November, so is it gold now or close to gold? And are you still going to be continually tweaking the physics right up to launch, but also post-launch?
So what we do, and we've done this for the last few games, you get something that's good enough to pass certification with, if you're doing it multi-platform.
Yeah, because you're on PlayStation, Xbox, PC deal.
Yeah, exactly. So to get it past Sony and Microsoft, you need something solid. But you need something solid 3.5 to 4 months before the game ships.
Exactly, yeah.
For to get it certified, for to get through ESRB ratings, all of this stuff.
Physical discs.
Yeah. So there's one area, very happy with all of the physics, force feedback and what you're feeling through the wheel, with the single exception of brake lock. When you throw the brakes down and the wheels lock up, we're not quite getting what we want to get through there. And we haven't fudged a single thing on the force feedback, and it feels really good. But I think we're going to put in, we don't want to mess about with caster, because that will give you some bump, as the wheels lock. Or we don't want to make it overly loose when they completely lock up with no ABS, and the thing just slides and you just lose all that. We're still working on what we're going to do, and I think we're going to do something that's audio based. I know that sounds strange. So we have a screech, obviously, when you're locking up the brakes, maybe feed something in. So there might be a tiny bit that comes from that, or we'll work it through the tie rod in some way. But we need to slightly improve the feedback from the brakes and the locking. The reality is I've never reached the level that I wanted to reach with any of the games, and I never will. And I've came to that conclusion. But I'm getting closer each time. If I get to control it completely, we won't mention Project Cars 3. You probably will.
No, we won't.
Okay, thought so. It's just nibbling those bits to get where we want to get, you know. And there's areas that are clearly, like iRacing's multiplayer is unmatched. It's amazing. I sort of know what they're doing, but I still can't do it. You know, I can't get the talent in, who are amazingly talented, to make it quite that level of acuity of driving, even in the replays, and, you know, 48 NASCARs going around getting, you know, bump drafting each other. That's bloody good work, you know. So we'll never reach that. I don't think we ever will, but that's fine. We're good for what we are, and it works nicely, and the multiplayer's fine, solid, it works. Listening to the feedback, we did a lot of fudging of the force feedback in previous games, thinking, okay, let's see what we're getting fed from parts of the simulator code, instead of saying, let's just use the tie rods here, you know, and feed that directly. So we did that, and it was far too much information. So then we put a damper slider in there, so you can damp the amount of the micro details coming through, reaching the level of physics, which I think is the core of every racing sim, getting the physics of force feedback correct. And it was never at the level that I was absolutely proud of. I was very proud of what we did, given the constraints, the circumstances. But this is better. This is much, much better. I'm not going to say it's the best, but it's better than we've ever done. And anyone who plays it will know and will feel that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The main takeaway, I think, is things are improving. Work has not stopped. We've got 3 months to release. The game's gold at the minute, I think, or getting close to certified. Maybe it's gone through that. There's going to be one hell of a day one patch. And if you'd like to see our full review when it comes out, or maybe another preview event or information about multiplayer, don't forget the TraxionGG website. Leave a comment with your hopes and expectations as I completely spin out. It's time to end the video. Please subscribe. See you, bye.